Hey YouTube, Beardmaster180 here, coming at you with something a little different. A top 10 list. My top 10 list of emotional deaths. These will be the deaths that have kind of, flew under the radar, so to speak. This list won't include deaths such as the scene from My Girl, or the end of Titanic, or basically any Disney movie, Bambi's death, etc. But they'll be more along the lines of scenes that most people know, they just don't acknowledge. I guess you could say they're underrated. So, anyways, let's get right to it. Number 10, Volcano, The Death of Stan. So, this movie is about, surprise, surprise, a volcano. This volcano has arisen from the Los Angeles La Brea tar pits.
There are no La Brea tar pits in Scotland.
Thank you, Captain Obvious. Now, this movie is a suspenseful action movie, not so much a drama, but the death of Stan, the Metro Rail control guy. Honestly, I don't know what his profession was. Played by John Carroll Lynch, is a scene that chills me to the bone to this very day. So, the scene plays out as a group of unknown professionals that work at the Metro Rail Control Agency thing. They head down to investigate the strange occurrence of a train stopping abruptly. Okay, so it's not that strange. It was an earthquake. But the strange thing is that the tunnel is about 20 degrees hotter than it should be. So upon arriving to the train, they find everyone is alive but unconscious. One of the men stays outside the train and notices something odd coming towards the train. Turns out it's magma.
What's magma?
Lava.
Thank you, creepy nerd chick. He calls Stan down to check it out, and Stan orders everyone off the train. Someone asks where the driver is, and Stan heads to the main train car to rescue the driver. However, by the time he reaches the driver, the magma,
Lava.
whatever, the lava has made the underside of the train, has reached the underside of the train and is melting the train itself. So once Stan makes it to the back of the train, the lava is too far out to be jumped over. So with lack of better options, he jumps anyways and lands in the lava. However, he can now throw the driver to the others and die saving someone else. Now, this death isn't so much of a crying type of emotional death, because looking back, I think Stan was kind of an asshole. But it still sends chills up my spine just watching him, burn in the lava. It's kind of creepy. So the reason why I put this death so low is Stan isn't a main character. He's hardly in this movie. But that death will always send chills up my spine and remind me why I should never play with lava. Number 9, The Day After Tomorrow, The Death of Frank. Okay, so this scene isn't really a crying type scene either. In fact, it almost was number 10 if I hadn't remembered Stan. So, in this movie, the whole planet has been experiencing strange weather, such as hail in Japan, twisters in LA, etc. And all of this leads to the Earth plunging into a new ice age. And this is the main plot point. So, a group of people have been forced to take shelter in a New York library. And one of these people is the son of the scientist who discovered this. So now the scientist, played by Dennis Quaid, is going to risk his life and travel through freezing cold to save his son. But he's not going to do this on his own, as his two scientist partners are going to accompany him in saving his son. So while traveling, they wind up walking across the roof of a shopping mall. Do not ask me how, because I don't know. So it's one of those shopping malls with a glass roof, and one of the glass panels gives way, and the supply sled falls, and it pulls the trio down because they've got they're connected together with ropes so they don't lose each other. Quaid is able to catch the roof with his pickaxe pickaxe. Pardon that. Leaving me to wonder, how did the glass not break when he drove an axe through it, yet it broke just walking on it? I know glass is brittle, but you'd expect an axe to kind of, break it. But anyways, now you got to admire Frank, because when he falls through the glass, his life is literally hanging by a thread. And when asked if he's okay, he replies,
"I'm fine. Just dropped in to do a little shopping."
Not many people can say stuff like that. I'd probably be like, "What do you think? Get me the hell out of here!" But that's just me. So to lose some weight, pulling them down, Frank decides to cut the rope connected to the sled. The sled lands, and Frank realizes if he falls, it's going to seriously hurt in the morning. So Quaid tells the other scientist, Jason, to support Frank's weight. However, in doing this, the glass underneath Jason is now cracking and will soon shatter as well. Frank realizes that if the others are ever going to make it, he'll have to cut the rope. So he gives his life so the others can continue the rescue mission. So even though Frank isn't a main character, his death is still pretty dramatic and emotional, making it the perfect scene for number 9. Number 8. Poseidon. The death of Robert. Not many people like this movie. A lot of people find it illogical. I find it's kind of entertaining. But it is largely hated, and it's kind of seen as a disappointment. I guess it had a lot more potential than it showed. But the scene where Robert, played by Kurt Russell, pretty much gives his life to save the day is kind of emotional. The movie is about a cruise ship that gets capsized by a rogue wave, and a small group of survivors break away from the larger group of survivors because the larger group of survivors think, hey, it's smart to just stay put. In some cases they'd be right, but this isn't one of them. So the small group of survivors try and find their way out of a watery grave. Most of these survivors, they die, kind of picked off one by one. But to me, the most emotional death is when the remaining survivors, near the end, they find a way through the ship, through the propeller. The problem is it's still running, and the emergency stop is completely submerged and too far to go, and it's too far to go and come back in one breath. Robert's soon-to-be son-in-law decides that he's the only one who can make it, and while he says goodbye to his love, Robert takes his place and goes under. Unfortunately, when he gets to the room, the emergency stop is broken. I don't know how, it's just broken. He then starts to convulse, and in his last act, he changes the rotation of the blades and dies. I guess he was hoping for something like maybe they'll realize that it's not sucking up, it's pulling or something. I don't know. Like I said, it's kind of a very illogical movie, but I still enjoy it, kind of. So a main character, but not too dramatic of a death, makes this the perfect scene for number 8. Number 7, The Longest Yard, The Death of Caretaker, played by Chris Rock. Okay, so a lot of people left the theater crying because they found this movie bad. I personally love this movie. I laugh every time I watch it. But there is something that does piss me off about this movie, and it's this scene. I mean, why kill Chris Rock? He was the main reason I watched it. Back then, I wasn't that big of an Adam Sandler fan. I mean, and you're just gonna kill him? Like, I'm probably gonna get a lot of hate on this one, but in my eyes, he was the funniest part of this movie. Like, once he dies, I find the movie less funny. Not that he had all the funny lines, but he just seemed to add more to it. When he was around, there was a better vibe. It was of comedy, and then they killed him, and the rest of the movie wasn't as funny as it could have been. And yeah, after his death, there are a couple one-liners, but without Chris Rock, it's not as good as the hour or so we had with him. Um, but the way that this all spans out is Adam Sandler plays Paul Crewe, an ex-football star who has been sent to jail and is told to make a football team compiled of the inmates to play against the guards as a sort of warm-up for the guards. So as Crewe trains these inmates, he starts thinking that they can actually beat the guards. So the guards hire a pyro inmate to dispose of Crewe. Without Crewe, they'll be able to win, break their spirit, la da 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 da. So, unfortunately, Crewe's new best friend, Caretaker, goes to Crewe's cell to leave a surprise gift. It was sort of a framed picture of Paul himself. And it's sort of like, I'll leave it here, and then when Crewe comes back, like, oh, yeah, that's nice. I guess this sort of thing. But unfortunately, he winds up setting off the bomb that was meant to kill Crewe, and Caretaker dies in his place. I put this one so low because we don't actually see the death in its entirety. Because the original one, you actually saw Caretaker on fire, and it was kind of creepy. And you could substitute that scene for this one, if that's your cup of tea. And also, it comes after an hour or so worth of comedy. I mean, it's hard to feel emotion when your headache's just coming down from laughing so much. So that's number 8. The death of Caretaker, with the salvation of this movie following in his footsteps. Number 6. Terminator 2, The Death of the T-800. I put this one close to the bottom for the same reason why I put Caretaker's death so low, but for different reasons. Whereas Caretaker's death was just after a ton of comedy, the death of the T-800 is after 2.5 hours of action-packed, adrenaline-pumping scenes. So we don't really feel too sad when it happens because our adrenaline is still coming down. But after the credits roll, we start thinking about what just hit us. I mean, John loved that robot. Like, in my eyes, John sees him sort of like a father figure. And, the robot just killed himself to save the future. And in a way, yeah, we're feeling more sorry for John, but it's because of the T-800's death that we feel this way in the first place. And after a second viewing, and some realize this after the first viewing, we feel sorrow for the machine because he seems to have the same feelings that a robot could have for a human. Robo feelings. It's not like a movie could have a robot that has human emotions, human feelings, think he was a human the entire movie, halfway through find out he was a robot. In a movie that's about machines that could care less about humans. Oh, yeah. I actually debated around either making this number, the T-800's death, or the death of the franchise. But I figured this one fit the list a bit better. Just a little bit.